Michael, let's just give our viewers some background on the Estina project. If you just cast your mind back to when the Public Protector first released her report into this failed dairy project, there was so much criticism, particularly around the fact that it didn't mention Ace Magashule.
It was called a whitewash at the time, and that it significantly failed to deal with implicated politicians in the Free State, namely the Premier, Ace Magashule, the now Secretary General of the ANC, and the Free State MEC for Agriculture, Mkhwebane. So if I look at the report, and I mean we have to cast our minds back now to February 2018, that's when this report came out, and that's why I've got the report here and highlighted things. I mean, there have been a lot of developments on the story since February 2018. But the complaint was initially laid on the 12th of September 2013 with this office. So it's come a very long way. This report found that the bean counters, the CFOs, those in admin, those in finance, that they had not followed the correct prescripts under the PFMA, that Treasury regulations were flouted, that it was clear that there was not value for money, that there was exorbitant, hugely inflated costs paid for things like a silage bunker, a 2-kilometer gravel road at a cost of 1.2 million rand, a security gate and guardhouse which I've stood outside, and it is literally a little brick structure with a gate, 2.6 million rand paid for that. So there were questions around how the money was spent, but there were no findings made against those that were giving the instructions. And there is an interesting part here where it says the contract was approved by the legal department in the office of the Premier, as confirmed by the CFO in interviews. And this is where logic dictates, well, where are the instructions coming from? If this is all found to have flouted Treasury regulations and the internal procurement processes, it did not follow the necessary state procurement processes. There are people a lot smarter than you and I that sit in these departments and would know that.
So it's like the Public Protector's report went all the way up to a certain point and then stopped just short of saying these are the people who are to blame.
And there's a reason for that. She says the recent newspaper articles, what came out of the Gupta leaks, the fact that a lot of the money, at least 15 million rand, that flowed to Dubai, a lot of the funds flowed to Dubai. We know that from the Gupta leaks. When it flowed back into the country through the help of KPMG, at least 15 million of that went to pay for the Gupta wedding. She says the recent newspaper articles and the emails reported related to the Gupta family, this were noted but did not form part of the investigation and the scope of this report.
So she says, I realize that these are the issues at play, but this is not part of my mandate as the Public Protector?
Yes. So I think, and she's mentioned this, when I met with her, it was the 25th or the 26th of April when she was in Vrede interviewing the intended beneficiaries. That is another group of people, a significant part of the complaint related to that 51% of this project was supposed to benefit poor black farmers from Vrede. That never happened. Promises were made that never came to fruition. That was another part that was never dealt with. She says due to budgetary constraints and a lack of information. So when I met with her in Vrede, she did go and have a public hearing with the intended beneficiaries. And after that, she said she is now going back to these politicians based on the testimony of those intended beneficiaries. She's going back to Mkhwebane, and she says if needs be, she will go back to the principal head in that province, Ace Magashule.
And does that still remain the same, Michael? We've run out of time, but just very quickly in terms of looking to the future now, what she said back then she would be doing, is that what she does now after the report is declared unconstitutional and invalid?
Look, we're entering a speculative realm here since the PP's office has said that in the wake of this judgment they're not going to speak until they've actually read it. So when I spoke to her a few weeks back, just over 2 weeks back, the intention was to go to the politicians involved and having interviewed the intended beneficiaries, a new report would be released. I don't know what the status quo is, what the standing or thinking of the Public Protector's Office is now that this report has been declared unconstitutional and set aside.
Has effectively been rubbished. Thanks very much for that, Michael Apple. On our breaking news story at this hour, the Vrede Dairy Project report by Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane has been declared unconstitutional and invalid. We'll continue to track that story for you.